And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr, along with Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, we've talked in the past about the problem in Gaza in this fight between Hamas and Israel. Is this the opening act to something broader? What do you think really is going on here strategically?
I think you have to worry about that, Bob. The fact is that this could be a flashpoint to a broader conflict in the region, or a spillover effect that has implications not just for Israel but for the region as a whole. I think any time you have a conflict in the area that's called the Levant, Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, you've got to look at the spillover effects. And we've seen that in Syria with the conflict there beginning to spill over into places like Turkey, Lebanon, having an impact in Jordan. And so all of this relates to other factors in the region. And I think it's not just about Israel and Gaza. It's about the stability and the changes in the region, and whether or not this is a flashpoint for further conflict and instability.
What is the nexus, if there is one, between this skirmish and a potential bigger battle with Iran from Israel's standpoint?
Well, Israel wants to put this conflict with Hamas and with what's happening in Gaza and the militants there in a box, because they've got a bigger enemy and bigger fish to fry. They've got Iran on the horizon marching toward nuclear power. They've got to deal with the fact that they may have to use military force to impede that march. They may have to go it alone, depending on what the U.S. does or doesn't do. And so in a sense, they're trying to contain this, I think, so that they can begin to focus again on what's happening in Iran. Now, Iran, on the other hand, probably loves this situation because it puts the focus again on Israel in the region. It takes the focus off of them. They're not on the headlines anymore in terms of their nuclear program. And certainly Assad, Iran's chief ally in the region, Israel's neighbor in Syria, gets some breathing space here, because he's no longer sort of the target of the world in terms of attention. What you have is this conflict between Israel and Hamas. The other thing that happens here too is you have the players that are sort of anti-Israeli, that are militant, gaining power and influence and momentum. Groups like Hamas gaining greater international credibility, regaining credibility within the Palestinian community as a defender of their interest, fighting the Israelis, part of the resistance. And so this is an interesting moment for the proxies that fight Israel, and groups like Hezbollah, which have been under a lot of pressure in Lebanon. Suddenly the pressure is lessened, and Israel again becomes the focus.
Finally, as we wrap up, just on Iran, the International Atomic Energy Agency looked at what Iran's doing. They say that maybe they're a little farther down the road than we thought towards the ability to develop a nuclear weapon. Does this change the timetable for Israel's intervention, if there's going to be that?
Well, I think it will perhaps impact the debate in Israel, but I think the sense in Israel and the sense in the U.S. Doesn't change fundamentally, because you've had in Israel a sense that the Iranians have not been deterred. They continue to march quickly toward nuclear capability, and they have not had a great deal of confidence that either Western intelligence or Western pressure via economic sanctions will really alter that course. And so I think this is another piece of the puzzle that adds some urgency to the question. How soon will Iran gain that nuclear capability? But the calculus will still be the same. At what point will Iran reach that capability, and at what point does a country like Israel have to take action?
And that's a question, or those are questions we'll have to tackle next time.
That's right.
Juan, thanks as always, and thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you again next time.